Welcome, everybody, and this song is so true for all of yous about to rock. I absolutely do salute you. A great song, by the way. I love that band, AC/DC. Oh my God, one of the bands I grew up listening to, and just one of my favorite bands. I'm a huge rock fan, huge metal fan, but as I keep telling people, since I got into playing instrument, I should say, becoming a musician, I have definitely opened playing drums is opened my mind and my music vocabulary huge. And I talk about that because it still amazes me on what I'm listening to now, things I would have never listened to a year and a bit ago. Never. I would have never even thought of it. And now I'm all over the map. I appreciate music so much more. And I do know it's because I did pick up drumsticks, and that's where it's led me. I still love rock. I still love metal. Absolutely. It's my go-to. But I'm still listening to a lot of other different music, and that is very, very cool because you learn this way. At least I am, and I'm learning that there is such a big world of music out there that people just don't know about, or they don't investigate. They don't give it a chance, and I was in that boat. If it wasn't rock or metal, I didn't want to listen to it unless it was something I heard on the radio or somebody played for me, and if I liked it, okay, that was cool, but they would end there. And now I'm just find myself exploring so much more. It's just such a great thing. And I always want to encourage people. I always start the show off by saying, if you ever thought of playing an instrument, it's ever crossed your mind, or you have played an instrument in the past and you put it down, if it's collecting dust under the bed, it's in your garage, God knows where you have it, pull it out, dust it off, pick it up, because you just never know. This time it may stick with you, and you may be so thankful that you did pick it up. And if you haven't played before and you've thought about it, no time is better than now. Just remember, any limitations that are in front of you, you are the ones that put them there. You put it there. It's your limitation, so stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Grab an instrument. Pick it up. Give it a try. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. So that's my little bit of encouragement. I am excited for the show. I've had my guest on before. We have done a 3-part series breaking down the Beatles from A to Z, right from the start, right to the end. It's a 3-part series. You don't want to miss it. You can find it in the archive section, definitely. And I've also had them on here talking about what's the process of writing a song and getting it from start, thought, basically the thought, right to the finished product. I'm fascinated by this. So I've had them on speaking about this. My guest needs no introduction on here. Mike Williams, welcome to the show once again. I'm excited to have you here and to have a conversation. Music.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having me back. It's always a fun show.
I have a great time chatting with you, and I know because you love music, and I can tell you love it as much as I do, and so that bonds us definitely. And you're a guitarist, and I started guitar in high school. It never stuck. It definitely never stuck like drums did. I was meant to be a drummer. I wish I could have picked up drumsticks when I was in my teenage years, but back then I try to tell people, as you well know, Mike, it was a different world. Drums were hard to come by and very expensive when I was a kid. Like, they were so expensive, and you had to kind of know somebody. You didn't have the internet to go find secondhand stuff. It was just different. Now it's so easy to get an old secondhand kit and at least pick it up. So I'm fascinated. I want to know what you've been working on. What have you been working on since we last talked?
Well, I'm engaged in a project, Rick, to bring back and re-record songs that my brother and I wrote and recorded going back to, well, the earliest one was that I've done so far back to 1979, which was 46 years ago. Yeah. So back in the day, in the late 70s, the early 80s, and going into the 90s, we wrote a lot of really good songs. And in the early days, the late 70s and into the 80s, we were recording the songs as demos and sending them out to record companies and to publishers to either get a recording contract or a publishing contract. So to make a long story short, like with so many songwriters and bands, nothing really materialized. Mm-hmm. And then you move on in your life and you have to get, quote, a real job so that you could pay the bills, right? So I said to my brother, going back about 9 months ago, I would say, I say, hey, we've got those songs from the late 70s into the 80s and the 90s, and there was some really good stuff there. And some of the stuff was recorded in the studio. Other stuff was recorded on a 2-track in our living room.
Oh, okay.
Back when we were kids. So I had this mishmash of recordings. And so I said, let's re-record them, but let's not re-record them exactly as we did them back then. Let's reimagine the songs. So, and what I mean by that is to keep the melody, obviously, and keep the basic song structure in place, but to do it how we would do it 40 something years later.
Right.
What would those
Okay.
songs sound like? And so that's what we've embarked on. And my goal is to try to get 12 to 15 of those songs done by the end of this year. And I've just finished up song 7
Oh, nice.
and I started on song 8. I was telling you before we started that for song 8, I just got done programming the drums. So the way this works is I will put a drum track in. I have an Alesis SR18 drum machine. And then my brother, who's a drummer, will then go in and overdub human drums. In other words, he'll drum on the songs.
Very
But
cool.
for the time being, in order to get the song done, because we have to work with each other's schedules, I have a drum machine track down. But it's very easy just to remove it and then send him the song without the drums. And one of the songs that we did, we just redid, goes back to 1979. That was the first one I mentioned that goes way back.
Right.
And yeah, and we redid it, and I thought it sounded great. It came out great. And back in the day, around 1976, there was a band that came out called Klaatu, Klaatu,
Plateau.
and Klaatu, and they were a Canadian band.
Ooh.
And in the beginning, what happened was they were very secretive with who they were, and there was a rumor that it was the Beatles reunited. And I
Oh.
and I knew it wasn't them, although
Oh,
there
okay.
were some although there were some songs that were very good as far as sounding like the Beatles. One was a song titled "Sub Rosa Subway." Sounds very, very McCartney-ish.
Yeah, sounds
And
Beatles. Like,
yes, and
yeah.
Dr. Marvello was another song that sounded very Beatles-ish. But I knew it wasn't the Beatles because you would listen to the other tracks on the album and you knew that it
Mm.
wasn't them. But if you heard the single at the time, which was Sub Rosa Subway, um, and Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft, that was their bigger hit. I could see where people would think it was the Beatles, but they weren't. But we loved them. We loved them so much that we wrote a song called Vacation in Your Mind. And it was recorded, I think it was recorded on a cassette in our living room. And we kept a copy of it after all these years, over 4 decades, and we still had a copy of that cassette. So in fact, my brother had it. And I said, could you send it over to me? And it was really my brother, actually, he wrote the lyrics, and our bandmate Jeff wrote the music to it. And oddly enough, I played drums on it, Rick.
That's very cool.
It was very weird because that's the only song I've ever played drums on that was recorded, and this was recorded, in our living room on a cassette because I'm a guitar player by trade. And I said to my brother, I said, I always loved that song. And he said, "You kidding me?" I said, "No, I'm not kidding you." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, I always thought Mike it was a throwaway, and I didn't give it much thought." I said, "Well, I like it." I said, "So give it to me, and I will redo it." And so what I'll do, Rick, is for you, and let me see here.
Cool.
I just put it in the
All right.
comments there, in the chat for you. Okay. So so we're doing a string of songs like this, and the one I'm working on right now is a song called "Throw Me a Line," and that was written back, I think, in 1984, around an 84 time frame. And I was going through the song, and I'm re-recording it. So back in the day, my ex-wife sang harmonies and did some of the vocals on some of the songs. She had a very good voice, and I forgot about her singing the chorus, which I'm 66 now, so it's 40 something years later, and I can't hit those notes. So I I contacted my daughter. I texted my daughter, and I said, "Hey, your mother sang this part in the song, And my daughter has a beautiful voice. She took voice lessons, and so
Oh, that's amazing.
she has an outstanding voice.
Awesome.
So I said, I'm going to send you the original that your mother sang, and I'm going to send you what I have so far is the remake, and let me know what you think. And I need you to sing that, if you can. So she wrote me back, and she says, "Oh, Dad, that's easy."
That's easy.
Yeah. So
Oh
that's
my
what I'm
God.
working on, Rick, and it takes a lot of time to do it. Um, it's interesting how I remember a lot about how I played those songs, what I
Hmm.
played, the riffs, and all that. And there's some things that I have to refresh myself on, but it is very interesting how your memory, you can go back in time and you can remember exactly what you did
Hmm.
and what you played.
That's right.
So, but it takes a lot of time, and that's one of the reasons why I moved on from the research into the Beatles. Well, number one is because I did that for 8 years, and enough is enough. And yeah, I brought that, I think, full circle.
I agree. Yeah.
And I really wanted to get going with this project. And and one of the reasons is because as you get older, you start to think in terms of a legacy. What and a legacy with regard to your family.
Hmm. I
I have
get
two
it.
grandchildren, and I also want to leave something for my daughter about what her father was about, for the grandkids, what their grandfather was about, what types of things did he do, and also, like I said, the songs. I believe I know they're my songs, but I could be fairly objective. I've written songs that I didn't like, so I didn't record them. And so if I recorded them, I thought they were good enough to be recorded, and
For
I think
sure.
these songs are pretty good. And so it takes a lot of time to do this. And so freeing myself up from the Beatles research and stuff like that has been great because now I can just focus on the music.
Yeah, I get that. And like I say, I get that. As you get older, I think about those things too, right? I like, what am I leaving behind? Like,
Right.
you think about those things. At least I do. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm wondering. I'm like, am I the only one that really is thinking like that? Like, what am I contributing? What am I leaving behind? So I get what you're saying. And music will last forever. I really I really understand the power of music. It's something that I think really connects most people to some level. And I'm fascinated by music, and I think I always have been, Mike, by the power of it. How it can, like you were saying, it will instantly take you back.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, you hear a song, and it will take you back to that moment in time, and to the point where you can. It's so vivid, and that's why I've always said there's something with music that it really connects us to something, some greater thing, because it's just the power of doing that. And I know it happens with smell and stuff like that. Not as good for me. Music is the thing that will bring me back in time to that moment, to where it's so vivid. So there's power there. I get why you want to do what you're doing, and getting that music out there. And I'm glad that you're doing that. I think you got to do that.
Well, I think it's also important as you get older to stay engaged with your hobbies and your interests
Right.
because it's what keeps you young. It's what keeps you motivated. And you just
Absolutely.
don't, slump back in a chair with a remote and watch TV all day. So that's not me. And I've been very blessed, Rick, as far as the health goes. My hands, I don't have any stiffness or anything like that. And I was telling my wife, I said, I'm very lucky that way because there are a lot of musicians once they get into their 60s, and certainly by the time they get into their 70s, where
Yep.
the hands become a little more stiff and it's a little more difficult to play the things you used to play.
Mhm.
So, my take on it is, well, while I'm still able,
Let's do it.
let's do it. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it. I'm like that with
right.
drumming too. I picked drumming up so late in my life, but I did it. I'm just so happy I did. I'm really happy I did. That's why at the beginning of my show, like as you heard, I like to encourage people, because I truly believe that the limitations that, and it doesn't just go for music, like it goes for a lot of things in life. People put these limitations in their mind, and I always try to remind people that the only limitations are the ones you put there. And even when I picked up drumsticks, I had a lot of people encourage me, so I'm blessed that way. But I did have a few people that were like, "You're crazy, and what are you trying to prove? And you're not going to be able to do it." And then for me, that's just fire to make me want to do it more. But I'm glad I did, and you're never too old. But I do agree that, you know, yeah, it keeps your mind. I just saw a whole show on learning music, what it does in the brain and how it builds it really builds your brain, like learning music and trying to figure it out and understand it. This was great. I'm going to try to find it and send it to you because it was really breaking down what's going on in the brain.
Yeah.
And you're building new neural pathways and you're rewiring your brain into this really, it's really interesting. I was like, wow. And they really suggest, like, don't just play stuff, like, that's good, you want to do that, but learn new things, always challenge yourself. So try to keep pushing yourself, and the whole time you're doing that, even when you're not practicing, it's really, this was the cool part. And this happens with me. I don't know if it happens to guitarists. I'm curious to see if it does for you, but I'll work on a drum part and I'll struggle with it, and then I'll step away from the kit for an hour and I'll come back and I'm better. Like it's sat and marinated in my brain. I don't know, maybe that now it makes sense that I'm still building those receptors and these new neurons and all these things going on in the brain, even when you're not playing. It's still going on. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
That
Yeah.
does happen. I've had situations where I'll sit down and I'll have to put down a lead guitar track and I'm playing it and I'm thinking, this is really not going where I want it to go.
You just know, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's just not sounding the way I need it to sound for the song. And so when you step away and you give it a break, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just shut the recorder down and I'll
Hmm.
go downstairs and my wife will say, "What's going on?" I'm like, I'm just stuck on this one thing. I just, it's just not breaking for me.
Yep.
And I mean, I could put something down, but that's not really what it's about. It's about putting something down that really grabs you, really
Right.
strikes you.
Yep.
So I'll come back the next day and, just refreshed. I'll sit down, I'll fire up the recorder, sit down again, and then boom, all of a sudden it unfolds.
That's right.
The
Yep.
other thing I wanted to mention, Rick, you were talking about, never being too old, and that is so true. And it doesn't matter what level you are at with your abilities with the instrument. So if you're a beginner guitar player or intermediate, as long as it makes you happy and you get enjoyment out of playing, do it. Don't get caught into that web where you're thinking, well, I'll never be good, or I'm not as good as this person, or any of that stuff. First of all, the only way you're going to get better is by playing.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's a creative outlet.
For sure.
So just play, and we all started at a point where we weren't that good. And you get better and better the longer you stay with it. And practice is very important, obviously.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
even if you're not into it to be like great, but you just want to play the guitar or the drums or the piano just because you get enjoyment out of it, that works too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, because I mean, like I'm very realistic. I didn't pick up drums thinking in my mind, like, oh my God, I'm going to start a band. It's going to be the biggest band in the world. I'm going to tour the world, all these things. That wasn't in my mind. I do it because I love playing drums. And I just love the sound of a drum kit. And I love learning. And it's like I said at the beginning, it's opened my mind and my music taste so drastic. Like I'm listening to things that I would have never listened to a year ago. I didn't even know existed. And it's just the love of the drums sends you on this path of creativity and learning. And I'm learning a little bit about guitar from my guitar friends and all of these things. So it's really a great concert and thing that happens. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Like you have to go into it because you love it and keep pushing yourself. That's what I keep doing. I keep doing, and I get frustrated. I think and I'm glad that we kind of brought that up too, Mike, because we were talking about before we went live. I said like I feel sometimes I get into this rut where I'm not making any progress. I know I am, like I know deep down I am. Every time I practice, I'm making progress, but I don't see it. And I think people get frustrated with that too, like especially probably with guitar, because guitar to me is way more precise. Like I mean, drums you can kind of bang your way through it and make it sound somewhat decent if you have any rhythm. But guitarist to me is way different. And I wasn't good at it. I just didn't love it like I do drums. But I get into these ruts where I think I'm not making progress. But then I have to remember that it's these small little steps that get you there. So you have to be aware of that. So and you get like that with guitar, like when you were learning, and I know you're still learning, but do you feel like that sometimes? Like you're like, I'm just not getting anywhere.
Yeah, sometimes as a guitar player, you'll get stuck because what happens in the beginning is you learn scales. So as
That's
an
right.
example, you have the pentatonic scale, major and minor, and you'll play that, and that's it's like a major cog in the wheel of
Yeah.
rock music, you
It's like
know?
rudiments for drumming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you learn that, and sometimes you get to a point where you think to yourself, okay, well, this is sounding like everything else I played.
Hmm.
And so that's when you have to take a step back and you have to regroup basically and think to yourself, okay, look, so let's expand some more. Let's think outside the box. Let's learn a different scale. Um, let's do this. Let's do that. Let me try something a
Hmm.
little different. And that's how it expands. Is when you start to experiment and you start to think to yourself, okay, I have to change it up because otherwise this is going to get stale. But
Hmm.
every musician goes through that. I don't care what instrument you play, guitar, piano, drums. I'm sure there's so many drummers out there that think to themselves, look, there's got to be a different fill. I've got these,
Hmm.
3 or 4 go-to fills, and there's got to be something else that I can slip into the song or something else I can work on. But it's like that with every instrument. But that's part of the process of growing as a musician,
That's right.
you
I
know.
agree.
And
I agree.
yeah, I mean, and I don't claim to be the greatest guitar player in the world or the greatest songwriter in the world, but over the years, I've gotten pretty good. And but I could still listen to other guitar players. Like whenever I listen to going back to like Jimmy Page or Jimi
Oh
Hendrix,
yeah. Oh my
Eric
God.
Clapton. I mean, the guys that I grew up with, and I think, oh man, those guys are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they've come up with. But it's not about. It shouldn't be about comparing yourself. It really shouldn't be, because that's a trap. That's where you can actually demotivate yourself because you're
That's
thinking,
right.
well, I'll never be as good as Eric Clapton. Well, you know what? I won't be as good as Eric Clapton, but that doesn't mean I can't sit down and still enjoy playing the instrument and writing and recording songs.
That's right. Yeah. At least you're doing it. That's the thing.
Exactly.
You're there doing it. It's like God. Like at least start. That's the hardest part. And that's a good trap to warn people of because I did that even starting with drums. Like I'll listen to some drummers like the drummer for Tool and that, and then people send me stuff and go, "Oh, you should hear this," and I'm listening to it, going, "I have no idea what I get the idea." Well, I can say that now. At first, I was lost, even with some of the most basic things, but that's what gives me a lot of hope too. Is you start this is where you start seeing your progress when you start you'll hear a song and then your brain will be like, oh, I know what he's doing. I can't play it, but I know I get the idea of where he's going with it, and it's just practice. It's really repetition, at least for drumming. It's just doing it over and over and over, and until it's ingrained in you. And it's great to make mistakes. I don't even like to call them mistakes because it's got such a negative feel to it. Like it's not a mistake. I call it just a learning curve kind of thing. I don't know. I don't like calling it a mistake because then it makes it like you feels like you're doing something wrong, and you're
Right.
not really doing something wrong. You haven't got it yet. So it's just that it's the process, and but it is a trap. I really am glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of people get discouraged. They're like, I'm never going to be as good as them. Well, you may not be, but if you don't try, you're never even going to know, and you never know. You could be better than them. Who knows?
Right.
You don't
Or
know where you're going to go.
you could be very good and be perfectly happy with what it is that you do,
Right. That's right.
you know. Do you watch that YouTube channel Drumeo?
Yeah, I'm part of Drumeo. Are you kidding me? That's right. I did the. That's why I got. That was my first thing ever that taught me how to hold the money beat was Drumeo. I did the 30-day drummer with the girl's name. I can't pronounce it. She's French. uh, I'll think of it for the end of the show. But yes,
The little girl?
yeah, yeah, she's amazing. She's such a good drummer. I'm trying to get her on for an interview, but I haven't got a hold of her yet. But yes, I do know Drumeo. I'm part of Drumeo community, and I like it. I think there's a
Yeah,
lot to learn there.
but and the thing is when you watch Drumeo, now I'm not even a drummer. My drumming abilities are very basic. But I enjoy it because here you have professional drummers that sit down and they have to play to a song that they've never heard before.
I love that. Oh yeah.
And it's fantastic because you can see that even the drummers who are great are thinking through the songs. What do I do here?
Hmm.
Um, what's amazing to me is how these guys are able to basically store the song in their head. I mean,
Yep.
they might write some notes down. You know, I want to do this here, there. Here's the verse. Here's the chorus. Here's the bridge, and so on. But their ability to recall the song structure is phenomenal.
It's
But
phenomenal to see.
the
Yeah.
point I'm making is that even these guys and these gals, they still have to listen to something and say, okay, well, what do I do here? And then when they play the original drumming track from the band, sometimes they're similar, other times it's different. And you can, when it's different, some of these drummers will say, hey, oh yeah, you know, I should have thought about that, or I
Yep.
should have done that.
Yep.
That was really good. So
It's
even
awesome. Yeah.
even the best are still learning by listening to other drummers, by listening to their peers.
Yep. I
So
agree.
I really enjoy that YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Domino is the teacher, the lady that does the 30-day drummer. That's where I started. That was my very beginning. I did 30-day drummer because I was like, and I remember when I started, my goal, because I could never do it when I was a teenager and when I tried any other time during my life, it was a friend had a kit and I would try to play it. I couldn't even do a money beat. Like I couldn't just do a standard drum beat, simple drum beat. I was like,
Yeah.
if I can do that, I'm going to be so proud of myself. I remember saying that when I started taking the drumming class, like the 30-day drummer. I'm like, if I can just hold together a song and do the basic beat, I'm doing something I never thought I could do. And then it came, and actually, it came quickly. Like it really did. Like that's how I know I was meant to be a drummer because it came quickly. Guitar, I had to struggle for every little single thing that I did on a guitar. It was a struggle. It was hard. And drumming just came more natural for me. So I'm a big fan of Drumeo, and they have more too. They don't just have Drumeo. It's part of a bigger program,
Yes.
and they have Guitario and Singio and Pianio and so it's a great thing. It's a great place to start, I think. And I know the videos you're talking about where they bring in these big world class drummers,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's scary how close they get to
Yes.
the original too. I'm like, how are they? Like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like well, I really think that you get good at knowing like kind of what a song is going to do. The more you do it, it's got to be that. Because even my drum teacher that I work with once a week, he's the same way. Like he may not know the song, but he'll get it close. Like it's like I don't know, like it's like a language you understand, and then I think you hear it so much and do it so much, and maybe it's like that with guitar too. You just kind of know like where things go. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the studio drummers. They have so much experience under their belt playing to different songs that they're excellent at just picking up very quickly
Hmm.
and to take the song where it's going. Yes, but it's the same thing with guitar as well. What I'll do occasionally, I used to do it a lot more, but I don't do it as much today because, well, first of all, I'm working on this project. But
Right.
I would put backing tracks on, and I will play to a backing track, and I'll play lead guitar to the backing tracks.
I do that with drums. Yep.
Yeah, and my wife sometimes would, you know, she would stick her head in, and she would say, um, have you been practicing that song? I said, no, actually, this is like the first or second time I've run through it. And she says, well, how do you know when to come in? How do you know where, you know, where the breaks are and all that stuff? I said, you know, I don't know. It's what happens is you kind of get into the groove of the song,
Hmm.
just get into the feel of it. And then as you do that, you're flowing with the music and it's not robotic. It's not mechanical. It's, you have to actually um, fuse with the music. And once you do that, once you get into the groove and the feel of it, it becomes a lot easier to just go with the flow.
That's right. Feel the music. I'm just kind of smiling because my guitarist says that all the time to me. Because I'm always counting. Still, I'm at that stage still where I'm counting my way through things to
Yeah.
make sure I'm on like and he's just like, God, stop. Like I don't count. I try not to count out loud or anything, but you can tell I'm counting. It's probably very evident on my face because I got this determination look on my face and I'm so scared of messing up. And then my big thing that I do on drums and I did it today in my lesson is that if I make a mistake on the drum, I'll stop and it drives my poor Carlos, my drum teacher, insane because he's like, just keep going, like
Keep
don't
going.
stop the whole song, just keep going, and then and so that's what I'm in. But this is the learning process I'm in. Like, and so if I make a mistake and hit the wrong tom, or I hit the wrong snare, or the snare wrong or something, and then and I stop, and then I start all over again. He's like, no, just keep going, play through it. But these are the things that you learn, and I get what you're saying. And my guitarist is always saying that. That was my point. That I gotta feel more. Like he's like, don't think so much. Like get out of your head and start. And then it does work when you start to actually just kind of settle down and feel things out. It's more, and it's more enjoyable when you do it that way. If you're not always counting, like I'm always in my head counting now.
Well, and if you feel it, what happens is the count and the tempo flows.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
happens to guitar players too, Rick. So don't beat yourself up. Like I'll be recording sometimes, and I'm paying attention to the drum backbeat, and I use it as a click. And what happens is sometimes if you're not feeling it, if you're not flowing with the music, sometimes even your guitar playing can sound a little stiff or mechanical because you're too focused on the time.
That's right.
And if you just go with the flow, the timing will come and the playing will come together. It'll fuse.
Yep.
And
That's exactly right.
it'll blend really well. So it happens to everybody. That's the thing with music. We all go through the same stuff, and even the great drummers, the great guitar players, the great keyboard players, they all started at a point when they were beginners.
That's right.
And everybody understands the process. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great point. Everybody starts at the beginning, and does it come at? Are some people prodigies? It comes super easy to them. Absolutely, they're the exception. They're not the rule, and a lot of people have to work for it. And it was funny because I asked my drum teacher. It's funny that you brought that up because I asked my drum teacher that today. I said like, God, like because he's been playing. I think he said for like 27 years or some crazy number, and I'm like, oh my God. And it shows. And I was like, but how were you when you first started? And he's like, oh, for the first year I learned one drum beat, and that's all I would play. Like that's all he played. He's like, I didn't want to learn anything new. I just played that one drum beat. And he said, then I got into a band, and then everybody in the band was like, dude, you got to change it up. We can't just keep doing the same drum beat for every song. But that was cool. Like it just made me realize, like it just puts the reality behind it. And that's what I'm really hoping. I'm hoping people that are listening are going to understand that, like all these things that we're talking about, that we all start as beginners. We all make little we have setbacks, we have frustration, but then there's this beautiful side of it too, where when it works, it really works. And
Yeah.
and the fact even if you're not that great, you're still learning. Like even the fact I can read, like I would have never thought, Mike, that I could read sheet music, drumming sheet music. If you would have shown me that a little, like when I first started, I would have been like, I don't even understand any of that. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I understood tablature for guitar because I did that in school, but I couldn't read sheet music. Now I'm still learning. I'm not like probably a grade 1 level of reading a book where I'm like sounding everything out, but I understand what's going on. Like it's growing, that vocabulary, which it is. It's amazing. And then the fact that when I saw that documentary on how it shows what it's doing to your brain really excited me, because it's like you said, it keeps you young, like learning. I feel stagnation. That's what I always say on my shows. I fear that. I really don't want to be ever stagnate where I'm just not doing anything, not learning. I like to learn. And this is an instrument's a great way to do that because you're always learning.
Anytime you can get lost in playing music, which is what happens.
Yeah, I did today, 3 hours.
3 hours, 4 hours. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been days when I'm up recording up here in my office, recording one of the songs that I'm working on, and I spent 8 hours
Wow.
in front of the recorder
Flew right
working
by.
on this, working on that, and the 8 hours doesn't seem like 8 hours at work. The 8 hours just goes like that. It just,
Yep.
and that's because you're in that zone,
Yep.
and that's what you're focused on. And I don't know, it's very satisfying.
I agree.
It can be frustrating. Don't get me wrong. It's frustrating sometimes when you sit down and say, okay, well, today I'm going to work on this and I'm going to get X, Y, and Z done. And then you sit down and you only get X done. Y and Z never happen.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, well, we'll get that tomorrow. And I'm
Yeah.
at the point now where my wife says I'm even doing like it's funny. I got to take her word for it. And I've had her tell me I do that a lot when I'm sleeping, that I'm even, because at first she noticed that I had my foot, like when I was sleeping, she's like, your foot's tapping and your hands are doing this weird thing. And I think I'm doing beats in my head when I'm sleeping. I just think I know I am because she tells me. She's like, you got your foot moving and doing this weird thing, and you got your hands doing this. Like, she's like, it looks like you're doing a beat, and that's how ingrained it is in my mind. It's very interesting. I don't know. It's just really cool when you have people
Well,
tell. Like she told me that, I was like, wow.
I have a crazy story for you that about sleep and music. Going back to my second album, I have a song on the album titled "Make It Real," and
I like it.
no kidding, that song came to me in a dream. So in the dream, I was playing guitar, and I was actually watching myself. I was watching my hands on the fingerboard, and it was the main riff to the song. And
That's
so
so cool.
it's crazy. It's never happened. It only happened to me once in my life. So I woke up and I remembered the dream and I remembered what I was playing on the guitar. So I picked up the guitar like 8 o'clock in the morning and I played what I played in the dream. And with maybe some slight variations, Rick, that became the song. No joke.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
what's that, like? That's just showing you the power of it, though. Like, wow. Like I found that fascinates me. Like it really does. Like it really, that's how I know how deep it is ingrained in people. And I always tell people how the power of it. Like we're talking about right now. Like there's something so tribal is a good word I use all the time. Like this tribal. I don't know. There's just we're really connected to music, there's I think there's a lot going on, but the fact that you did that in a dream, that's really fascinating. And then the fact you remembered it, and then 8 in the morning you're sitting there plucking away on the guitar. It's like wow, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
I remembered it because I was so focused on it when in the dream. And and like I said, when I woke up, I got a cup of coffee, 8 o'clock in the morning. I picked up the guitar. I said, well, this is what I was playing in the dream. And I'm thinking, actually, that sounds pretty good. So,
That's really good. Yeah, that's so cool.
yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I'm playing drums in my sleep. You're figuring out guitar riffs. That's amazing. That's really cool. And yeah, this is such a inspiring conversation. I like this because God, I really encourage people to try an instrument. And I have got a few emails from people that said that I had somebody that picked up a trumpet. They were a trumpet player a long time ago, and then they kind of like got away from it, and then they dusted it off. They said and they're playing it again, and to me, that's a win. It's
Yeah.
like anytime you can get somebody that is either going to try a new instrument, and that's another thing I encourage people to, Mike, is maybe try different instruments. I tried guitar, it wasn't my thing. I like it, I love the sound of it, I love guitar, I love the looks of them, I like all that stuff. It didn't come, it was I really had to work for it. And then I love bass, I like low end, and so it's no surprise I love drums. But try different things. Like who knows what you're going to love? Like there's so many instruments out there. So
Well, I love playing drums. I'm just terrible at it.
but you're not focusing on it. If you focused on it, that's another thing that's amazing with musicians too, that I've met a few. They can play so many different instruments. I'm not there yet, but I do have this urge. I want to learn piano. It's there. It's rumbling down in the recesses of my body. I'm like, I just got this need. I'm like, I gotta eventually learn piano. But I know a few musicians that they're multi. They can play drums, they play a little bass, they play guitar, and I'm just like, wow. Like so, the language of music, I think, I really it really translates well to other instruments. So I don't think it'd take you long to pick up drums. If you focused on drums like you do on guitar, I think it wouldn't take you very long because you've already got that knowledge of the guitar. You're way ahead
Yeah,
in the
I can
game.
do the basic beat. That's, it's anything more elaborate than that, though. My brother takes the drumsticks out of my hands.
Yeah, he's like, give me those. Yeah, yeah. But that's cool, man. I love it. But that's really, yeah, guitar is I like guitar. There's a lot of guitarists I was like back in the 80s and that when I was in high school and that I remember. And that was back in the days of you definitely know the soloing had to be as fast as possible. And I think of like guitarists like Paul Paul Gilbert and stuff like that, and Eddie Van Halen was huge. You know, that
Yeah.
was like they couldn't figure out like what he was doing on the fretboard when he was tapping and stuff, and it's just crazy. Like there's so many good musicians out there, especially guitarists.
It's
Like
funny,
who?
David Lee Roth said that when they were first getting started, they were playing gigs before they became famous. He used to tell Eddie to turn his back so that nobody could see how he was playing, how he
Playing.
was doing the taps and all that stuff. But Eddie was a prodigy. I mean, he was
There's some
unbelievable.
and I think of Randy Rhoads and stuff
Randy
like that. Like
Rhoads, yep.
just incredible guitarists. And then I even found out when I started playing drums, I didn't oh my God, who was it? Okay, hold on. It'll come to me. See, my brain's is not working with me. Oh my God, why can't Phil Collins? I didn't know was a great drummer. I never
Yes,
knew.
yeah.
Oh my God! Then I saw him do a drum battle, like not a battle, but they were kind of going back and forth and trading. It's on YouTube if you type in Phil Collins. I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but drum battle or something. Just type in Phil Collins drum battle. It will come up, and it's incredible. Like I was like, wow, Phil could really kick some ass on the drums. He's amazing. So
When I grew
crazy.
up, I loved John Bonham.
Oh
I
my
thought
God.
Bonham was phenomenal.
Yep. Yep.
Also, Mitch Mitchell from the Jimi Hendrix band, he was a phenomenal drummer too. And I believe Mitch was real. His background was a jazz drummer.
Yes. Jazz is
A
crazy.
lot of these drummers in these rock bands had jazz backgrounds. I think Ginger Baker also.
Yeah, the drummer for the Doors, John Densmore, I think.
Yeah,
He's definitely got jazz in him, or Latin or something. He's got some. He's like that's not easy drumming. I'm a huge fan of the Doors, and I listen to a lot of their songs, and their drumming is not easy. Like they were incredible musicians to some of these bands. Like another one for guitar, kind of talking what you're into, the guitaring. I think one guitarist I'm really impressed with is Pat Benatar, her husband.
her husband.
Oh my God. He's so
Yeah,
good. He's so good. And
yeah,
people are
he's
probably
a
going
very
like,
good
what?
guitar player.
Oh,
But he got overshadowed by his wife.
exactly. Yes, but I mean, just some of his songs, like some of her big songs, just go back and listen to the guitaring,
Yeah.
and he just goes off on some songs, and I'm like, oh my God, like he's really, really good, like amazing. So yeah, but he did get overshadowed. You're right.
Yeah,
Poor guy.
that's because his wife was it was the Pat Benatar band, and when she was the front person, the
Exactly.
singer, and I'm sure a lot of people back in the day, I know there are people that knew that her husband was her guitar player,
Yeah.
but there were a lot of people that probably had no idea and just thought he was a guy in a band.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. And I don't think they really ever, a lot of metal guys, excuse me, I don't think a lot of metal guys ever gave him the chance or even gave him to listen to really go into the catalog and just hear how good he was. And so I always tell people, especially guitarists, I'm like, listen, like go, no joke, go listen to some old Pat Benatar songs and listen to the guitar work. And they 99% of the time they'll come back and go, I had no idea that he was that good. Like, and I'm like, oh, he goes off. Like he is an amazing guitarist. So but yeah, definitely, I agree with you. With a lot of them are jazz influence, and jazz drumming that's a whole different thing for me. I listen to it. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure some things out, but whew, it's not the same as rock drumming, that's for sure. But it's funny how they incorporate. So then I'm learning with drumming that there's a lot of marching band stuff in there. Like I can just tell. I can definitely tell a drummer that was in marching band in school or took
Yeah.
it. I can just tell just by the way they play. It's
Well,
so
when you go
uh,
back to, I pulled a couple of records here just in case we talk about stuff like this. But
awesome.
so what I do is I go back to the old Chicago blues,
Oh my yeah. Oh wow.
the old Chicago blues artists.
Vinyl. Look at this.
Yeah, it's on vinyl. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God, I'm
yeah,
a vinyl collector.
yeah. I'm a vinyl collector. So I think it's important because the old Chicago blues, those blues uh, players were great, and that's what segued into rock and roll.
Hmm. For
You
sure.
know, here's another one. Here's a great guitar player, very influential with Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, but Buddy Guy.
Oh, Buddy Guy. Right. This is where rock and roll is from, folks. This is you're looking at it.
Yeah, and this is like Buddy Guy's greatest hits. It's a 2 album vinyl set, and Buddy, he kicks ass.
Yeah. Oh my
And
God,
I
yes.
play along sometimes. What I'll do is I'll throw the record on, and then I'll plug my guitar in, and I'll play along with him.
That's so cool.
Then I can
Johnny
say
Winter was
then I can
another
say I
one.
played with Buddy Guy.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I do that with drumming too. I'll throw a song on even if I don't even know. I get. It's funny. The more I do it, the better I'm getting at. Kind of. I get a lot of the beats and stuff like that. The fills are what mess me up if I don't know the song very well. That's another struggle I'm having with is fills, but we're working on it. It's gonna get there. I know. I know I will get it. So that's just letting people know. Like everybody's got these little things. Every player has their own little hurdle that seems to trouble them. And for me right now, it's fills and. But Johnny Winter was another guitarist when I was growing up, and I got some
Yeah,
of his vinyl. Oh my God! Like there's just so many great guitarists out there.
there are.
And what were you like? I'm trying to think back. Like who was? I'm sure Eddie Van Halen was somebody that you like back in the from the '80s era. Who were some of the guitarists that you were listening to?
Well, I did listen to Van Halen
Yeah, of course.
in the
Yeah.
80s, but
Yep.
the bands and the guitarists that influenced me
Hmm.
were Jimi Hendrix. I loved Jimi Hendrix
Oh yeah.
growing up as a kid, and I loved Jimmy Page,
Hmm.
his guitar playing. He had some monster riffs. Who else? There's a bunch of them. Even listening, going back to the old Beatle records and listening to the guitar playing on the Beatle records, whether it was George Harrison or not.
That's right.
um, I picked up a lot from that. I picked up basically how to approach a song, how to lay a guitar track in so that it fits within the construct of the song. In other words, you're not overplaying, you're not underplaying, you're playing what you should be playing to add to the song. And that's the era I was born and raised in as far as music. And so that what it taught me was that music is like a puzzle and it has different puzzle pieces. And your job as a guitar player or a drummer or the piano player or the horn section is to fit nicely within that puzzle.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so there was a lot of guitar players that I listened to. Eric Clapton,
Oh my
obviously.
God.
Clapton
Yeah.
was a huge influence on me as well. Um,
Great
yeah,
stuff.
and like I said,
Jeez.
Buddy Guy,
Hmm.
Howlin' Wolf, going back into back to the Chicago blues. I used to listen to, I listened to all that stuff.
Yeah.
And as I got into, I was less into the into metal and the glam bands and stuff like that. I was I was not a guitar player that was into speed. And I'm not saying that being into speed guitar playing is a bad thing. It's whatever
It's just
makes
not
somebody.
your thing.
It's not my thing. Yeah, whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
It's what you like. It's what you like, right? For people who are listening. So I came during my period. Like I said, I'm 66 years old. It was a different style of guitar playing
Hmm.
that that I learned from.
Yeah.
So
No, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get it.
and by the way, sometimes like some of these guitarists that are technically very, very good, and they will fly up and down that fretboard. Um, my personal opinion is that it's interesting to watch because you're thinking, wow, the the ability and the skill to be able to do that.
Hmm.
The technical skill is incredible. But then there's that other side of me that says, but what is it adding to the song? To me, a lot of times there's no melody. And
It's a good
so
point.
that's my opinion. No, I was on an interview I did about 2 years ago. I did two music interviews with um, a DJ. He goes by the handle Z.
Oh, I okay. I think I
Artist First Radio is
yeah.
the
I think
name
I
of the.
saw that interview.
Yeah, and he said to me, Mike, there's two types of music. There's music you like, and there's music you don't like.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
That's basically it in a nutshell. So yeah, so depending upon which era you were born and raised into with regard to music, that's going to significantly influence your taste in music and how you approach it. Like my brother, he's 10 years younger than I am, but he was in that whole period with Van Halen and those types of bands. And he's a great guitar player. And his influences were those bands. So his playing was influenced, and he could do what they did. He really can. He can replicate a lot of he does a lot of Van Halen stuff. He nails it.
That's awesome.
Can I do that? No, I can't do that. That's just not me. That's not the style of playing that I do. Could I do it? Well, if I sat down and practice and practice and practice and practice, maybe I could get close. But
it's not your thing.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I was like that with tattooing. A lot of people, I like old school tattooing. That's what I did. I did like old school style tattoos. And at the time I was doing it, everybody wanted realism. And I was just like, I love it. I appreciate it. I don't do it. It's not my floor. I used to tell people, not my floor. Go to the other floor, because I don't do realism. So and it's the same with music. You're very right that it's what you like. I grew up, the drummers, like a lot of the drummers I liked was Steven Adler, the original from Guns N' Roses. I like the way he drums. I liked Ricky Rocket from Poison, as much as people are probably laughing. He's a great drummer. And I just, so I grew up in a different time too. And so that's a big influence, is what the era that you were kind of exposed to, and that probably has a big influence on the direction you're going to go. I would think it definitely does. Yeah.
And you mentioned, Rick, about being old school. I'm very old school when it comes to recording. So I don't really use a lot of the software and the applications and that type of technology to record my song. So when I record, I sit down, I play guitar through the whole song. I play the bass, I do the keyboards. In other words, I'm not using a lot of the technology today that I think sometimes takes away from the actual human aspect of the music, because the technology gets in the way.
Yep.
So when you start doing, pitch correction and stuff like that, I mean, I can understand using it a little bit here and there to fix things up a little bit. But when you start to rely too much on it, that's not something that makes my boat float.
No, I agree. Yeah. Oh, geez. That when I get you back on, I'm writing a note. I want to get into that with you, because we're already at the end of the show, Mike. I can't believe an hour goes so fast with you, but it's because we're having a great conversation. So I'm writing this down because I would love to get into your thoughts on the technology, because this is something I find myself talking a lot about, is just, are we losing something with all this pitch correction and auto tuning and all that? So this would be a
AI.
great topic. Oh, AI. Yeah. We got a great show. So I definitely want to get you back on shortly or whenever you got some time. And definitely, if you're willing to, I would love to have you back to continue this conversation. I truly do appreciate you taking the time to come here and chat with us about music, what we both love. We got like a minute, so I want to make sure I give you time. Where do you want let people know where they can find any of your work, anything you want to promote? The floor is yours.
Go to my music website. It's a hub website. It's laboroflovemusic.com. And if you go there, links to all of my music are on the site. I've got a couple of videos where I jam to backing tracks. I also have a link to, if you're a collector of old Beatles vinyl, I have a link on that page that'll take you to understanding the labels and how collectible they are. Some labels are far more collectible than others.
Absolutely.
So it's just, And also, I have an old YouTube channel which is in archive mode now, but it was called DIY, Do It Yourself Guitar Talk, and I did a lot of repairs and upgrades on guitars going back in the day, and so you could take a look at that too, if fixing and upgrading guitars is something that somebody likes to do.
That would be great. Well, I just bought myself another hour. I'm going to be on here. If you want to stick around, Mike, I'm gonna continue. I got another hour here. I just got it. So, do you want to stick around for an hour and join me for a bit?
Sure.
Perfect. All right, we're going to be on a break, guys, but we will be back right after this. My guest, Mike Williams. We're talking all things guitaring, drumming, Stick around. I'll be back for another hour right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Look at what we did. We actually got ourselves another hour, so we are here to talk with my amazing guest, Mike Williams, for another hour. He's a fellow musician, guitarist, and he is actually out there, putting music out there, which is incredible. I haven't got to that point yet where I'm actually writing songs and doing stuff like that, but he has. And a great guest. We broke down the Beatles. We did a 3-episode radio show. We did over 3 shows where we broke down, start to finish, everything you ever wanted to think about and know about the Beatles. And you can also check it out on his YouTube channel. I'm going to make sure I put links and everything for that in the description. So that will all be provided. Definitely go check it out, especially if you're a Beatles fan. And I'll make sure all the other links are there as well, so you can go check out Mike's amazing music. And I love having him on the show because he's a fellow musician. We get into great conversations. And I was saving, because he brought up some great stuff at the end of this show. Didn't realize I was going to be doing hour 2, so I want to thank you, Mike, because this is totally, you were not prepared to do 2 hours, and you're awesome to be willing to sit here and chat with me for another hour or however long you can stay. And we are going to talk about next show. We're going to talk about technology, and I want to get your thoughts on this because this is definitely a discussion I get into all the time. So I'm glad that we're going to be doing it here on the show because I like, me for a singer, I'm going to go by singing. I like a person's real voice, and what I'm seeing now, and it is becoming rampant, almost an epidemic in music, is even amazing singers. You have producers or whoever's in the control room thinking that they got to tweak it and they got to make it and put all this stuff on it. They're running auto tune. They're doing all these things to their amazing voice. And to me, I think it's losing something. It's losing the what makes them a great, that emotion. It's becoming, sounds to me very robotic. I can pick it out right away now, auto tune and pitch correction. I can hear it, and it just ruins it for me. So I want to get your thoughts. I know there's a place for it, but what do you think, Mike? I'm so interested to hear your thoughts on what's going on with current music and the technology side of it.
Well, I think technology has its place. And obviously, if we didn't have technology, we wouldn't have pedals, we wouldn't have phase shifters and flangers and delays and reverb.
I love flanger.
And all that.
Yeah.
But the problem that we're running into today, and actually the problem exists today, is, as you said, Rick, a lot of music it's not natural. It's not organic in the sense that there's so much technology involved, especially with pitch correction, with voices, with software applications like Melodyne, where they go in and the engineer or the producer can just click off what notes need to be hit. And what the software will do is take the singing, whoever was singing, and put the singing where it needs to be, where it was mapped.
That's right.
And it sounds, I agree with you, there's something very artificial sounding about it. It lost its human factor. And it's funny, like if you go back to a lot of the old recordings, I was listening to, going back a number of months ago, and I don't want the audience to laugh, but I used to like a lot of the Monkees music.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you.
And
I'm an ABBA fan, so who am I to throw stones? I love ABBA.
There you go. There you
love
go.
them. Yeah, never say different.
But I had a Monkees Greatest Hits album, and I forgot which song it was, but I was listening to it, and the vocals were not, they didn't nail them. It wasn't, flat on pitch. And so it was a little off here, a little off there. And I remember thinking to myself, when I was a kid, I never even noticed that when I was listening to the music. I just enjoyed the music.
That's right.
And today what's happened is that is something that would never go out today under a major record label. Because everything now has got to be just picture perfect. And, with some of the software, you can take an instrument that's out of tune and it will tune it. Put it in tune. It's absolutely crazy. So that's not me. And I'm not saying I'm right and or I'm wrong. I'm just giving my perspective because, as I mentioned before, music is very subjective. Some people love the technology and in their minds, it's the way to go. But when I sit down and I do music, I do it the old-fashioned way, very old school. I play everything all throughout the song, and although I will use, because I'm older now, I do have an autocorrect turned on just a little bit to help fix any notes that might be slightly flat or slightly sharp.
Okay.
Now, when I was younger, I didn't need that. My voice, I can carry the song. It wasn't a problem. But as you get older, and for those of you who are older musicians and singers and songwriters, I'm sure you'll understand, the voice just can't do what it used to do. So that, like I said, I'm not adverse to technology. There are times when it's good. It can really help out. But what I'm talking about is when the entire vocal track has been pitch corrected.
That's right.
That to me, I don't know. My daughter told me a story going back a number of years ago. I mentioned my daughter has a great voice, and
That's right. Yeah.
she had a friend of hers, and it was a guy, and she was telling me he writes music. I said, okay, that's great. I said, what instrument does he play? She says, well, he doesn't really play an instrument. I think he was going into garage band back in the day. It was, garage band. And he was taking various samples of guitars, drums, and stuff like that, and putting a song together based upon the samples that are provided with the software. He would then say that he wrote a song. And I remember getting agitated when my daughter was telling me the story. And I said, look, I'm not knocking your friend. I said, but he did not write a song. He put a song together based upon going back to like the puzzle analogy. He had little pieces of the puzzle and said, let me put this here, that there, this here, that there. And then he created a song. And the only piece of it, I guess, that was actually written was the lyrics. And my daughter helped him with the vocals. So that was back then. And, and today with the advent of AI, now the big thing with AI is that the tagline is now anybody can write music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's, Rick, I got to be honest with you. That's insulting to people who actually sit down and write songs. Mm-hmm. For musicians that are actually sitting down and playing their instruments, and they have their guitar mic'd or plugged into an amp, and that's how they're recording or creating that song naturally.
Right.
And so, we're in a place now where I don't know. It's all this digital stuff and AI and the technology has put a lot of the music in an arena where it's very, in my mind, sterile.
Great word. That's a great description.
It's
sterile.
Almost very clinical, and it doesn't have that human essence, that human flow.
Yeah.
To the music. Hey, sometimes somebody sings, they might be a little off here or there, maybe a couple of cents flat, a couple of cents sharp or whatever, which, by the way, a couple of cents either way is inaudible to the human ear. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. That's so, right. But they want to make it exact. Sometimes you might hear a guitar part in a song going back in the day, and maybe the guitarist did clunk a note, or maybe it wasn't played as clean as we would hear today. But that was part of the character of the song.
100%, man. I'm just agreeing with everything you're saying. I really am. And I'm like, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Thank God. Because I could go on a rant. Like, I really could. I got it. I get it. It's a tool. When we're talking about these things, I understand that, and I agree with you. It's a tool. And you could, and you were talking about the different effect pedals. If I was a guitarist, I'd have 100 pedals. I really would. And I love the flanger. I don't hear many guitarists even say that word. I always like the wah pedal.
Yeah.
I like wah pedal. And my goal is to hook up my drum kit to some of these pedals. Because with an E kit, you could do that. I don't know what's going to sound like. It's probably going to sound horrible. But I want to try it. I want to put a flanger through my E kit. I don't know what's going to happen, but it'll be fun. But anyways, So I get what you're saying, and the most there's a lot of disturbing things that we're kind of talking about and touching on here, but a trend I'm also seeing now is live music. Even when you go and listen to something that's supposedly live, you run it through these software programs that break down the vocals, and they're even correcting that. So, and I don't even know if the artists are aware of this. This might be something that not all artists are aware of. They put out a live concert and they probably think it's live, but then you have somebody on the back end who, like you said, they got to have everything on the line. It's got to be all snapped to the line. And they
Right.
think I think they think they're doing a good thing, but I don't think they're listening. I think they're looking at the program and they're just moving the lines because they think being on the line is perfect. That's where it should be. And you're right. It's taking away all the characteristics, all the little things that, especially live. Like when I go see somebody live, I don't expect it to be album. I'm not going there to listen to the album. I'm going there to listen to it live, and there's a feel for it. It's
It's
an
an
energy,
experience. Yeah.
right? And they're losing that, and that's what disturbs me is when you start. There's a great channel I'm going to recommend it, Wings of Pegasus. Go on YouTube. I
Yeah.
don't even know if
Phil's
you've.
channel.
Oh my God, like his analysis are so. That's where I started to learn how bad this was. Like it's where he's taking vocals that are supposedly live and the musicians like the singers even saying it's live, and then he runs it through these programs and you see it like it's objective data, you can't argue it, like it is what it is, and it's all been manipulated, and it just and I just wonder where does it go from there, like, and then we're getting into the AI, so this is such a big thing. And I get it. Like the odd time, you like you said, you might not, you might be a little flat, you might be a little sharp. Okay, the odd time you bring things up and you make them sound a bit better. I'm totally for that, but it's not like that. It seems to be it's getting used through the whole song. And these are singers that don't need it. They're incredible singers. Like, why are you messing with their voice because it's not snapped to a line? Well, that's what you're losing, the humanity part of it. This is such a great discussion.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing
It's,
is,
you know,
many of these artists do know that they're miming and singing to backing tracks and lip syncing.
it's right.
They
Yep.
do know that, and a number of bands got caught doing it. They got caught miming to the instrumentals.
Isn't that
They got
crazy?
caught um, lip syncing. Like Don Henley. That
Yeah, what is up with that? Like that's
right. What's happened, Rick, is that it's such a big business, and the music is really not music from an organic, natural perspective anymore. It's a commodity. It's a product, and what they're trying to do is to put the very best product out there. And they'll say, well, we're putting the very best product out there for the listening experience of the person who bought the tickets. That's the other thing. Cost of tickets for a lot of these bands is just outrageous.
oh my God,
But
don't yeah.
outrageous. Going back, I would say probably 8 or 9 years ago, I went to go see Foreigner and their
Oh,
40th
I like that.
anniversary tour. Yeah, well, I liked them too until I got there, and not one original member was on stage. And
Oh my
being
God, right.
being a guitar player, they had these jumbo screens at the amphitheater, so they focus in on the guitar player. And I don't know who the guitar player was again because there were no original players. Basically, I paid good money to go see a tribute band,
That's
and
exactly what you did actually. Yep.
that's what it is.
Yep.
And I was watching the screen, and I was watching what he was playing, and I was listening to what was coming out of the speakers, and it didn't match. And I was with somebody, and I said, and she turned around. She said to me,
Right.
are they lip syncing? I said, yeah. I said, it's more than lip syncing.
It's worse than that. Oh my God.
They're miming to a backing track. So this is what's going on today. And the other problem with all of this technology, Rick, is that this level of perfection that they're, like you said, they want to snap to a line is very damaging to singers and performers that are coming up through the system, because if they don't know any better, and a lot of them, especially if they're young, they don't know any better, they're listening to this vocal and they're thinking, oh, I've got to sing that good. I got to sing that well. I
Right.
got to be there. And what they're listening to is a digitized, snap to the grid vocal, or even instruments that have been enhanced
Hmm.
that way. and it's what it is. It's an artificial bar that they have people trying to achieve.
That's right. 100%.
And if they didn't apply the technology and they weren't using all of these gimmicks, then the bar would be lower. And because the bar is lower, in my opinion, that doesn't mean that the song or the singer or the performance is not great. And I would say that a lot of great performances were probably impacted by the fact, like I said, they got to this digitized state of being very clinical and very sterile, and that takes away, for me, that takes away from the experience. I went to go see Jason Bonham's band, and
Oh, right. Yeah.
this is going back a number of years ago, and Jason's band clearly played with no backing track. The vocals were the singer singing without any assistance, without any technology, and it was great. It was great. You're just there, like I said, listening for the experience. It's a live experience. What they've done is they've taken a lot of these performances and these concerts, and they made them sound like a CD.
Yep, because that's what people expect.
That's what
I
happened
get
with Florida.
that's what's going on. Yeah, they're like, well, that's like they go to a live show expecting CD quality, and you make a really good point too about, especially for singers. I really hope if there's any singers or people that are thinking about singing, when you hear a lot of these performances, especially on a CD or an album, I think albums you get a better sound. That's another whole show we could do about how people are getting their real experience by listening to music on their phone or whatever. I always tell
Yeah.
people you need vinyl, you need a component stereo, you need killer speakers like I have.
Yep.
I built my stereo from the ground up, and I've changed people like their whole take on music. I have changed it because I had it in my tattoo shop, and I would always listen to vinyl when I was working on people, and they would, especially the young generation. Oh my God, they'd be like, they never heard music like that, played like that, they through speakers like that. They'd be like, oh my God, what is that? And then I turned a lot of people on the vinyl, young people. So that's really cool, but I want to say to people that are singing, when you start to learn the amount of effects that they in the studio that they're putting on a voice, it's incredible. Like I just like, because I'm kind of building on what you said about how they're setting people hear these singers and they don't realize that there's a lot of production that goes into these voices. Like they are putting layers, there's reverb, and so yeah, you're trying to sing that and match it when you're trying to learn how to sing, and then you're like, I can't get there. Well, they probably couldn't do it with their just raw voice either. Like, not saying that they're not amazing singers. I'm glad you said that. It's not taking away. I'm not saying that they wouldn't be great singers. I'm just saying there's a lot of production that is behind the sounds that you hear.
Yeah, they're pulling the naturalness of the performer out of the equation. And what a lot of people probably don't realize, if you buy a live album, that album has been worked in the studio.
Yep.
Tracks re-recorded, vocals re-recorded, audience applause and audience ambiance added or enhanced. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you bought a CD or an album of a concert that you actually attended in person, you're not going to hear on the CD or the album, the record, what you heard live, because once those live performances were recorded and put to tape, then they were taken back to the studio and they were worked. I forgot which live album was, Thin Lizzy. I read where 75% of the live performance, this is going back into the 1970s, was reworked, redone, and fixed in the studio. And then the live album was released. After guitar tracks were re-recorded and drum tracks were re-recorded and so on.
That's insane. It's not, and then another thing people have to realize is that a lot of these live albums, they're not all at one place. That was a big shocker for me. Like they'll take it like from 4 different shows and they kind of stitch it all together. And I'm like, so it's not even a performance start to finish. I don't know. I'm sure there is live albums out there like that. I mean, I'm not the biggest expert. I love live albums, but I don't know. But I do know what you're saying, Mike. I've heard of that. I heard that with Kiss, with their live album that people love. That and people get a little, sensitive when you start criticizing certain bands. But, I've heard the band members say themselves that exactly what you said. They took it into the studio.
Yep.
Little things had to be tweaked. They had to up little, and I get it. I mean, to wire a stage and have all the crowd there, it's got to be a nightmare for the producer, like the technicians. I couldn't even imagine trying to get that and make it sound good. It's just
Well,
so much going on.
I'll tell you how far it goes back, Rick. The Beatles performance back in 1964 at Shea Stadium. Well, people will listen to or watch concert footage from Shea Stadium, and what they don't realize is much of that performance was enhanced post-production. Overdubs were done on the vocals, on guitar tracks, or what they did was they took existing tracks and they laid them in and they synced them up with the performance. So it goes back a long ways. Again, I'm not picking on the Beatles. What I'm saying is this is something that is done because the music industry is a business. And what they're looking to do is to put the very best product out there, really buff it up and polish it so that they can sell and make money. But the problem is that it's gotten to a point today where I just think technology is over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't I miss too, I would love to get your thoughts and opinions on this, and then I will bring my friend Greg, who wanted to join us. He's listening, so he's a big musician. He's actually put out a couple albums. He's more hip hop, but he's definitely a musician, and so he wants to actually talk to you a little bit about the tech side of it too. He was asking me questions during the break, like, what does Mike think about the AI and all that? I'm like, hey, ask him yourself. So Mike said it was cool that I brought him on. I will do that, but I wanted to get this first. To talk to you about. I'm like, I think we've lost something too about that. As once again, technology, it's a tool. I agree, it's great. It's making this happen. It makes a lot of things happen, musicians and that. But I think we're losing something. Back in the day, I think when you had all the musicians in the room together and they're all playing together, and I think this is a bigger topic too. I think that's why you see bands that aren't really bands anymore. Like the newer bands they haven't formed that bond. Because I think a lot of the touring has been taking away, in the studio together, figuring out music together, because now everybody's kind of at home. They send in their parts. So there's a big thing going on. What do you agree? Like, what do you think? Do you miss having, like, back when bands were bands and they were I think there was something magical when they were all in the room together and it was kind of recorded as one thing. Like, just they're like, you just record them doing their thing. I love that.
Well, you're missing the entire feedback loop from the band members. So if they're playing together, there's a dynamic in play. And so when you're in the room together, you can say, okay, hold on, let's try this. Or why don't we do a guitar riff that sounds a little bit more like that? Or, hey, on this break, let's do maybe this type of fill. Or maybe the bass line should be something other than what's being played right now. So in other words, there's the input, is the ebb and flow of the creative process between all of the musicians that's contributing to the creation of the song or the recording of the song.
There you go.
So when everybody's sitting at home and they're sending stems out.
Stems, I never heard that.
Yeah, I mean, this would be like a particular track, right? So in other words,
that's cool.
Right. So they said, okay, I'm going to send you what I've got from the basic rhythm track. And so here you go. And you're on the East Coast and your guitar player's on the West Coast. And he gets the basic rhythm tracks. And now you're asking them to put down a lead guitar part. So the problem with that is that I'm sure they'll put down a decent lead guitar part, but the feedback loop is missing. So I guess they can go back and forth long distance, talk to each other on the phone and say, okay, well, yeah, I thought it was pretty good, but maybe you could do a little bit more of this here, a little bit more of that there,
Yeah.
But it's that's society in general today. Society in general is it's not connected anymore. Everything is basically disconnected. They want to say, oh, you're all connected because you've got social media and you've got your phone and you've got this and you've got that. No, I'm not talking about that type of connectivity. I'm talking about connectivity human to human in a room.
Agreed. I talk about that all the time too, that we're losing something. We're losing that human connection, like that especially in person. I prefer in person. Believe me, if I could have you here in my studio doing a one-on-one interview like
Right.
this, I would have you in person because
Yeah.
and it would be different. It would be the same, but there'd be still something very different because we're actually in the room together and
Right.
it's you lose something with tech. And I mean, it's great. It's making this happen. I always say that. I love it. I wouldn't be able to do this without it, but it's not the same as in person. And if it affects people in their daily lives, and I think people are losing their social skills quickly, like people like in public, they're just their social cues are horrible. So I can't
Yeah.
even imagine for kids. That's a whole different show, but it's got to affect music. And I agree. I'm sure that people do a great job by trading music and adding this and all of that, but there's something about having a band in a room all together, playing the song together, and you hit the record button. That's what I want to hear.
Well,
That's
when we used to write music together, when going back many years, and we had our band, we would all be in a rehearsal studio that we would rent,
mhm.
and we would work through the songs. And there would be times when we're going through the song, and I'm listening to what the drummer's doing. I'm like, okay, I stopped the song. Okay, don't do that.
Don't do,
Okay,
no, don't do that.
don't do that. Right? Or they might say to me, Mike, just maybe the lead break should come in like this versus what you're doing.
Mhm.
So again, you have that ebb and flow, and I don't know. I think today they want to say it's so much easier because you could just send files back and forth to each other and all that stuff. But I don't know. Like you said, Rick, when you're in the room together, it's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing. And so yeah, I'm gonna see if I can invite my buddy Greg here because I know he wants to talk to you about the tech side of it. So I want to thank you for agreeing to like I said, stay another hour, Mike, and then
Okay. Yeah.
bring my friend in here. Greg, he's awesome. He's a big music fan, so big hit Phil Collins fan, by the way, and Fleetwood Mac. So we will get him on here. Let's hopefully he connects. If not, that's fine. We're going to continue, but he said he's ready, and it looks like he answered. Are you there, Greg?
I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. I know you have some questions. I'm my amazing guest on here, Mike. I'm sure you're listening. So, yeah, Mike, Greg, Mike. There you go.
Hi, Greg.
Hey there. How are you?
Oh, doing well.
Awesome. I was just listening in and I just want to make sure I'm just a rapper who has I'm not a musician or anything like that, but just a rapper who loves music and who definitely respects what you do because I think it's a lot. It's becoming a lost art. Since you mentioned this digital world, you mentioned AI, which to me it scares me. I don't know what your thoughts. Oh, I heard some of your thoughts on the whole AI thing, and I do believe there's a lot of bad things that can happen with it. Me and Rick, we've heard some of this stuff, heard some of that, so people can. It's plagiarizing,
Yes.
right? So,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, to understand
Go ahead.
AI is not sentient. In order for AI to create something, what it does is it goes out and scrapes existing content.
There you go. Yep.
So it's scraping music by artists, songwriters, musicians that have already been published. It's already out there, and it's compiling. So that's the issue I have with it because if we didn't have people like myself and other musicians and songwriters and singers like yourself, Greg, and Rick, AI would be useless because it would it
Doesn't
wouldn't
have
learn.
any.
It wouldn't have anything. It wouldn't have a baseline in which to draw from. And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm really not.
Yeah. Well, what's scary to me is, and it's all over YouTube and other platforms, is how they're taking the voices of famous singers and then they're
Yeah.
just they're playing out like all these different songs. Like so now you're getting Elvis singing like these modern songs, and then they got all these other. I've just heard so many different ones, and I'm just like, it's gonna, and you know that it's gonna get so good that people aren't gonna be able to tell. And then I just think it's a nightmare. I don't know where it ends. I don't see it ending anywhere good because how do you control that? I don't know how you stop it. Is what I
You have
guess
to
my
you have to
yeah.
regulate it, kind of like the whole Napster thing, right? Where they were
And look how
downloading.
that went. Like that went well.
Yeah.
Like God, I saw that coming. That was another thing I saw. That's a good thing. Napster. We got to talk about that too. My God, I saw that coming a mile away when they were doing that. Everybody was like going that the drummer for Metallica, Lars. Well, they were going after Metallica mostly because Metallica was one of the first bands to really call this out about Napster, which did change the whole music scene. And I think because the music industry doesn't seem to be learning their lesson. What we saw with Napster and how they were doing that with the music, I think we're going to see it with the AI, but it's going to be worse because they can copy anything. It's like Mike was saying, they're not creating anything, they're just plagiarizing. This is bad for music. Like
I agree, Rick. I agree. Like I said, AI could have its place if it's used in a way that maybe can enhance your creative process.
mhm.
But to fall back on it as the creative process, I think is a losing proposition. And I think people need to really wake up about it. A lot of the musicians and songwriters really need to understand that if it's allowed to continue going down the track it's going, then we're going to be out of business. I mean, it's hard enough already to get your music out there and get it distributed and people to listen to it. And once AI steps in and you start having these AI created songs, and I
They're
was
out there.
watching, they're
Yep.
out there. It's already out there.
It's already out
It's
there, man. It's all
already
over
out there.
YouTube. And they got people now, they're even doing commentary. They got AI doing their commentary now
Yep.
for shows, and I won't listen. Sorry, I can't do it. I don't like that robotic, monotone, no soul sounding voice just talking. So I think this is better. I like this. This is what I like.
Yeah.
Talking.
I'm sorry, Rick.
Go ahead. No, I'm add right in.
No, I was going to say, I was contacted by two companies that wanted to pay me
Oh,
to go through my entire catalog on my YouTube channel and create content based upon my content.
interesting.
And they're
Wow.
saying, well, you still retain full rights to your content and all that stuff, and blah blah blah. But what they're looking to do is they want to scrape through all of my content on my YouTube channel, and then they're going to create content, AI content, based upon my creative process. So two companies contacted me, and I told them both. I said, no, thank you, no, thank you. You're not getting your hands on my stuff.
Yeah, thank God. I'm so glad you did that. I heard that about another content creator. It wasn't about music, but it was about their podcast, and they
No, this
wanted.
was podcasting for me too.
Oh, okay. I thought it was your music. Oh,
Nope,
wow. So they.
no, yeah, it was my podcasting. Yeah.
Oh, so they. Wow. So they are targeting people then that got good channels. They're selling you that. Yeah, and you of course, yeah, you're still gonna own it. Don't worry. And it's like,
Yeah, they
okay,
wanted my Beatles content. That's what they wanted.
yeah, of course they
Mhm.
did.
Yeah, and I told them no.
Good for you. That's what people need to do. Oh my God, I can't. Like this is so. Like, what do you think, Greg? You can add in anytime you want. Greg, you got
Yeah,
any questions?
yeah. I was just gonna say, do you have any advice for new artists, for people that are just getting started? We talked a little bit about that, but how do you protect, especially with the AI thing, but even before the AI, how do you protect your creative content? Like, what's the
Question.
best ways to protect your original music and
For
project?
me, I copyright all of my music through the Copyright Office. Um, they'll tell you that you don't need to do that because as long as you can prove that you created something and you have a way of being able to date it, you're okay. So that's a form of copyright. But to make sure it's ironclad, you really need to file the application with the Copyright Office to make sure that it's sitting in their archives. And it's like $65 a song, so it's not cheap. But on the other hand, it's $65 in my mind. That's well worth it because if somebody tries to lift your stuff, it's going to be a big problem for them. It's going to be
Yeah.
very difficult. So that's what I would suggest if you're writing original material. And it's not just music. I mean, if you're writing books or whatever, poetry, and to do that,
Yeah.
that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I
You're an
ran
author,
into,
Greg. So yeah, you
yeah.
should be. I hope you're copywriting all your books.
Yeah, the books are, yeah, I mean, now I'm gonna have to go back and look at the books too. But I ran into a bunch of problems with my songs, and all I'm a songwriter, so I just, I write the songs and everything. I didn't do the music. I had nothing to do with the music except for hiring some people or paying people to do that portion of it. But I did a lot of my music in the early days through CD Baby.
Yeah.
And they kind of had this thing where it's like, yeah, and that's what they pretty much told you. Yeah, you can still use it and everything. You're not going to have any problems. But now, if I were to actually take one of those songs and try to put it onto YouTube, I would get a copyright strike.
Yeah.
Okay,
How
that's
do you?
crazy.
I mean, am I just out of luck at this point? I don't know.
So CD Baby is filing the copyright strike.
CD Babies, yeah, they're filing the
Yeah,
copyright strike.
That's
I've run
crazy.
across that. Let me tell you how I ran across it. Twice already, and I'm going to do it again. I reached out to my audience, my YouTube podcasting audience, and because on my Beatles channel, I have a lot of songwriters, musicians, sound engineers, some producers, and I put together a playlist of original music. So I call it the Great Indie Playlist.
Hmm.
And so I had a lot of musicians and songwriters send me stuff, and CD Baby jammed it up because when I tried to upload that playlist to YouTube, it blocked the video worldwide. So the only thing I can think of doing is to contact CD Baby and say to them, "Hey, look, this is my song, okay? And I'm giving this person or this channel, or maybe even your own channel, permission to use the song. So you have to release that copyright claim." Um, but even that could be tricky with them because I'll tell you a story. So one of the songs came up and blocked the playlist I put together. It was like I think it was 100 artists that I put together, and so what I did was I wrote back to CD Baby through YouTube, and I disputed it, and I said, "Look, you're blocking a song that I have received permission to include in the playlist from the person who wrote the song. Please release the copyright claim." I get an email back from them through YouTube like 2 weeks later. They said, "No, no can do." So I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." So I went back to the songwriter, and I said, "Look, man, I can't help you here. I tried." I said, "But you got to go back and talk to them and ask them why they're doing this." I said, "Because in essence, they're cutting you out of royalties when you think about it.
Yep. Yep.
Because if those playlists are going to get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views, and your song is in that playlist, you're going to pick up some royalties. Not a ton of them. But if your song's not on that playlist because the publisher decided that they were going to block it, then you're going to get nothing. Now, I have TuneCore. TuneCore is my publisher, and when I've gone to them and said, "Hey, release the copyright claim for this song," I had somebody contact me and said, this is go back a number of years ago. I said, "Hey, Mike, I'd like to use some of your music in a video that I'm putting together as part of the soundtrack." I said, "Yeah, okay." And when he went to go do it, copyright claim was filed by TuneCore on my behalf. But when I wrote TuneCore and said, "Please take the copyright strike off, I'm giving them permission to use my music," they did it. They just removed it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so TuneCore was good about it, but CD Baby, my experience with them is based upon those playlists is not good. So I don't know. The only thing I can think of is, Greg, is maybe just switch to a different publisher, different distributor.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I was just curious about the older stuff, but even the newer stuff, you're saying you need to get it copyrighted, right? You want to get.
My suggestion, my recommendation is to copyright all of your material. Just copyright it. It's going to be a little costly, but That's the protection you want,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of bad actors out there.
And then where do you go? What's what's a website or what's a place people can go to?
You just go type into your search engine, the Copyright Office of the
Okay.
United States, and you'll go to the copyright site, and then you'll have to create an account, which is, password, ID, all that stuff. And then once you get in there, it's pretty much self-explanatory. They'll
Okay.
ask you, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to copyright? You say a song. Okay, so this is the form you got to fill out. And then they'll have you upload a copy of the song, an MP3, and that's their digital copy of it. And then you pay the fee. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, you'll get a letter from them that says that your song has been received and it's copyrighted.
Okay, that's definitely worth it. I got
And you
about
can do that. Yeah, you can do that probably with your YouTube channel name, your logos, any artwork. This is important, especially now. Like, I'm glad we kind of got into this. Thank you for bringing the question, Greg, and for you, Mike, answering it, because I didn't know that either. Like, how do you protect yourself? Because AI is definitely not. Never mind bad actors that Mike brings up. There's a AI stealing stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, aside from the AI, before AI, there were bad actors. There are
Yep.
people that will, they will steal stuff. And I mean, I haven't had it happen to me personally, but there's lots of stories in the music industry where somebody
Oh my God,
wrote a
yeah.
song and they were declined the recording contract or the publishing contract, and about 9 months down the road or a year later, they hear their melody
Yep.
is somebody else's song.
Yep.
So
That happens all the time in the music. I watched a documentary a while back, or it might have been on the TV. I saw it. It was like a show talking about like what goes on behind the scenes, kind of stuff we're talking about. And yeah, it's just thievery. Like people that wrote a song, and it's because they didn't know the right people, they didn't know how to get it out there, they didn't know the process, and then another musician heard it, took it, and got the song famous. Like, and it's not even their stuff. And I couldn't imagine if that happened to me. And I'd be like, really? All I had to do was copyright it. And if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, but I'm glad that you're gonna be able to give Greg that advice, because Greg, you got a lot of music, man. Like you put out a lot of, and you've written those songs. You should be protected. I mean, you just should. I think everybody should, and especially with their show logos and stuff like that. I think in this digital age, I think it's just wise to do that. And as Mike said, it's going to cost some money, but at least you own it. They can't steal it from you, and yeah.
if you're going to publish, my suggestion is if you're going to publish anything, you really should get it copyrighted.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah, Greg has written a few books. He's got a few that are coming out, and copyright. You have to. Exactly.
What kind of books have you written, Greg?
So I've written a couple of books. I've written a book about a true crime case, about a soldier who they say he killed his wife, killed his 5-year-old daughter, and killed himself. So we documented that. I've written a book about September 11th, and then I'm in the midst of writing a book about Kennedy, or I'm about to publish a book on Kennedy and Trump, and then I have another book that's pretty much done about COVID and the whole early days of COVID. So, I mean, a lot of stuff that I'm using, it isn't like it's my original material. It's just kind of more reporting or documenting on it. That's why I'm not so much worried about the book stuff, but the music stuff that I wrote, and even the songs that I paid the guys. So I have the I have ownership to it, to the actual music too.
Right.
I'm a little bit more concerned about the music side. Sorry about the background noise.
No problem. You started talking about 9/11. I thought it sounded like an airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Here it comes.
Here it comes. No, great advice. This is stuff that people got to know. Like, like if I ever start writing music and stuff, or drum stuff, I would definitely go about finding a way to copyright it. You have to protect yourself. And I mean, God, I have to get back on Mike too to talk about what your thoughts of the impact of Napster. Now, I remember that so vividly when that came out, and Napster came out, and I was as guilty as everybody downloading music and stuff like that. But I will say, in my defense, I always would go out and support the artist, and I bought their albums. So always did that.
doesn't this just remind you in some way of Napster? Everything we're going through right now with this, you know?
I think AI is stealing worse than Napster was.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
well, the record companies, you know, they've killed artists when they went away from albums and they went to streaming
Hmm.
because the royalties for streaming are anemic.
Oh, yeah, I know a few artists that have music out there, and their royalties are so bad. And then what drives me crazy too is the singles. Like a lot of people will just go get the single or download the single and never give the whole album a chance. And now I see the trend of where artists are just putting out like individual songs and not even really focusing on a whole album, which I think is another
Right,
problem. I
right.
Yeah.
think that you have to, like, I know a lot of the singles I would hear a single, I liked it, and I would go buy the album, and then you bring it home and you find a couple songs on the album that were never even promoted. They
It's
were
just like a
just
whole story. Every album to
yeah,
me,
like we're losing. Yeah,
they told a whole story. It was
yep,
great to listen to it from the front to the end. It's a lost art
Yeah.
unless you
yep.
have vinyl or something. Kids are missing out. Even with a cassette tape or whatever, but vinyl is definitely better. You don't have as much issues with it. But yeah, it seemed like the albums they told this great story. I
The
did want
artwork
to
of the
ask.
album, even the artwork on the album. I you know how many albums I bought from the
Yeah,
artwork.
you could
Like,
look at the artwork and just listen to the whole album and almost get everything you needed to know, if the actual artwork, if the artwork was really good, like Queen or something like that. There's some great artwork out there. You can listen to the whole album and you got everything. You get the whole story from just looking at the front, looking at the back. It was just a great time that I think a lot of kids they're gonna miss out. And even vinyl, I don't know if is it more costly now to create vinyl? Because I've looked at some pricing and I'm like, this is crazy. It's a lot of money to create
well,
vinyl
yeah,
with
I did
cheap.
too. I looked into it and it's very costly and they want you've got to order 200 LPs. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to sell 200 LPs
right.
as an indie artist? And yes, they do have small record stores, at least where I live. But what are you going to give them? Maybe 5 LPs, and it's going to sit in a bin someplace, and you hope that somebody picks up the Mike Williams album.
Yeah,
Or I guess you
yeah,
could sell it online. You could do that, but it is expensive to get vinyl pressed.
yeah,
So I wanted to do
vinyl.
it.
Yeah, yeah. I,
I
I
want.
I hope you do. I hope you do
Well, I don't
at
know if
some point.
I don't know if my brother and I have spoken about it, but we both said, what are we going to do with all of these albums? We don't have that many family members.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Like, 'cause yeah, you gotta buy in bulk, right? So then you're stuck with all these albums. I get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like yeah.
Going back to the streaming though, let me just give you an example. TuneCore, they have this new feature for their artists, and it tells you how many times your songs have been streamed. So I sign on, and they send me an email. Hey, we have this new feature. You can take a look at how many times your songs have been streamed. So I looked at it, and my first album came out in 2013, and so from February 2013 to the end of 2024, my songs were streamed 10 million times.
Wow.
But you know how much the royalties were? $6,500.
That's it.
So yeah, right. So the songs were streamed 10 million times, and I received $6,500 in royalties from the streaming. Now, my wife and I were talking about this. I said, "Hon, can you imagine if I received $1 per stream? I'd have $10 million over the course of 10 years. If it was 50 cents a stream, I would have $5 million." So
What are they giving you? Like pennies? You're getting
yes,
pennies per stream,
and
right?
and
yeah, yeah,
and still going. That's just from that time period, right? That
right.
doesn't include anything going forward too.
Nothing going. Yeah, that's the period of time that I took a snapshot of because the email came out last year, like in December. So I said, well, let me just go take a look from start to when I first joined TuneCore to the end of 2024. Let's take a look. So the point I'm trying to make is not to say, oh, my songs are streamed 10 million times. It's the point I'm trying to make is they're ripping us off. Is the
Yeah,
point I'm trying to
somebody's
make.
making money and it ain't you.
and it ain't you. And that's why it's very difficult to make a living as a musician or as a songwriter. My daughter, one of my daughters, is out in L.A. She's in a band, and I told her, I said, one of the most important things is to be the songwriter in the band, or one of the primary songwriters, right? Because everybody else is replaceable. I just would be perfectly honest with her, but the songwriter is key. The songwriter is imperative to the process. But they don't.
Publishing is where the money is, right? It's publishing.
Yeah. It's the song. Well, for the artist, it's merch these days. It's merchandise.
That too. Yep.
Merchandise. They're not making money on the actual music itself. Not a whole lot, at least.
That's great.
So, that's sad. That's so sad.
I know. Yeah. We have to get you guys back on so we can continue this. I'm really enjoying this. I really am. I really enjoy talking music, as everyone knows. I usually ramble on about it every show for a little bit, and I really do appreciate you, Mike, for coming on here. You're welcome back. I will definitely love to have you back to continue this conversation whenever you have some time. And I appreciate you, Greg, for listening and for you coming and asking Mike some questions and taking part in the conversation. And all the listeners, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea that you take the time out to come and listen to what I have to say and my guests have to say and appreciate music so much like we do. And poor Mike had no idea that I was going to be doing a second hour. So this was right on the spot. And so, yes, thank you, Mike.
Find Mike's stuff.
Absolutely. Mike, let everybody know once again, if we have any new listeners, where they can find your stuff. Greg would probably love to know your YouTube channels and all that. We still got like 3 minutes, so we're good.
So for my music, just go to my hub website for the music, laboroflovemusic.com, and there's a bunch of links there to Reverb Nation, to SoundCloud, and so on. And my other website, which is my podcasting website, is Sage of Quay, SAGEOFQUAY, sageofquay.com. So that'll have links to my music as well. But, I do a lot of podcasting that has to do with alternative research. And I've been at that for a long time. And Greg, I was going to say, if you have any videos or whatever on the topics that dig into conspiracy research, let me know. I run 2 blogs. Yeah,
that'd be so cool.
Send it to me, and I can put them up on the blogs. It gets a lot of traffic.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I've actually written songs. I've written some songs about some of that stuff just because, sometimes this was before the TikTok era and all that. It was easier to get a 3-minute song trying to plug my book talking about some of these like you said, alternative theories. So I didn't know if you were into that, so I didn't want to go too.
You're gonna love his YouTube channels. I'll make sure I give you links too, Greg. If you need any help, and then I can. Do you mind if I give him your email, Mike? Is that cool too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure I get your email to you, Mike's email to you, Greg, so you guys can get in contact about this blog and stuff like that. And I'd love to see what you write. And you guys will get along great on that area, that's for sure. And check it out. I'll make sure I give you links too to his Sage of Quay YouTube channel and his Beatles one and everything, Greg, and you're gonna love it. There's a lot of great stuff there. So I encourage everybody to check it out and check out the links that Mike provided, because a lot of great information there. And if you are a Beatles fan, definitely go check out Mike's work on the Beatles, because he has went into everything. And also in the archive section, you can find the 3 shows that Mike came on and did. Whereas I said at the beginning of the show, he broke down the Beatles from, start to finish. We went so in depth, 3 shows, 6 hours. We went into,
I remember
it's amazing. Yeah.
But he's probably got some new stuff coming out too, I'm sure, right? Always working on.
Well, right now, I tell Rick, I've taken a little break from the podcasting. I retired the Beatles research going back to last November. And a big reason for that is because I'm on this new music project.
Yeah.
It's called the Yesteryear Project.
Awesome. Sorry about that, Mike. But that is the music, guys. Thank you once again for being here. I will be back next Friday. Make sure you turn the stereo up, turn it loud, and get yourself an instrument. Start rocking. Thank you guys so much for being here. It was awesome.
It's time to get away, a vacation from them all. I know where you can go, where you've never been before. A very strange little place where you can do what you like. A vacation in your mind. 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 It's there. We've got it. We've had it all along. In this place of mystery, it's where we all belong. I can see your interest about a secret well unknown. You say you can't resist, you want one of your own. Then you know at this time that you need a vacation in your mind. 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 It only takes an hour, or maybe even half, to send your mind floating above this tiny raft. When an hour lasts a minute, and a minute lasts a year, see the things you couldn't see, and hear what you couldn't hear. Then you know at this time that you need a vacation